when the soul whispers, the world must quiet down. Today's journey is not one of noise or spectacle. It's about what unfolds in the stillness, what emerges in the silence. It's about the kind of transformation that doesn't shout, but changes everything. This is what happens when a Sigma female unlocks her spiritual energy, not just in a moment of enlightenment, but through a slow, burning awakening, one that shifts how she breathes, how she moves, how she relates to herself and to the world. You won't find this path in mainstream advice. This is not about becoming someone new. This is about removing everything that was never you in the first place. So if you are one of us, the quiet ones, the soft rebels, the soul listeners, subscribe to Wisdom Ways. This space was created for you. Before we begin, if you've been searching for something that feels like a return to yourself, my new ebook, Choose Yourself, softly was written in your language. It's for the woman who doesn't want to fight for her place in the world, but wants to carve it with grace. It's for the Sigma soul, independent, sensitive, soft, and powerful in ways most people overlook. You'll learn how to create peace with no guilt, how to slow down in a world that rushes, how to build boundaries without hardening your heart. This isn't a guidebook, it's a mirror. The link is in the description and the first pinned comment. If your spirit is ready, follow the pull. 1. The reclamation of inner space. When a Sigma female unlocks her spiritual energy, the first shift happens within. It's not something others immediately notice because it doesn't begin on the outside. It begins in the realm no one sees, her inner space. She starts reclaiming this space, like sacred ground. It used to be crowded echoes of other people's expectations, old roles she played to keep peace, noise from outdated versions of herself trying to be likable. That noise is no longer welcome. She begins to curate her inner landscape. Thought by thought, emotion by emotion, she weeds out what doesn't belong, gently but decisively. This isn't about control, it's about sovereignty. Meditation, silence, breathwork. These aren't trendy practices to her. They are tools for coming home. She understands that when she holds space within herself, the world outside can no longer control her energy. People might say she's pulled away or changed. What they don't realize is that she's simply returned to where she always belonged, inside her own soul. This is the first gift of spiritual energy, ownership of her mind, her time, her emotional frequency. She's no longer a guest in her own psyche. She's the architect. 2. Sacred rebellion. The awakening of a Sigma female is rarely dramatic, but it is always revolutionary. She doesn't need to burn bridges or raise her voice. Her rebellion is sacred because it's rooted in self-respect. She begins saying no with a quiet confidence that shakes people more than a shout ever could. This shift is subtle, but unstoppable. The version of her who said yes just to keep peace, she's gone. She no longer sacrifices her soul for harmony that isn't real. Instead of reacting, she responds. Instead of explaining, she simply chooses. And those choices are based on alignment, not obligation. She stops giving energy to dynamics that drain her, not out of bitterness, but because her spirit has learned what it costs to ignore itself. Her rebellion is soft-spoken but firm. A boundary drawn with a smile, a door gently closed, a silence that speaks louder than any argument. People might feel confused. She's changed. Yes, she has. She's stopped betraying herself. And in doing so, she's rewriting every rule she used to follow. Her rebellion is not against others. It's a revolution for herself. 3. The S, oft power, principle. There's a myth in the modern world that power must be loud, that it must look like dominance, control, or constant visibility. But when a Sigma female taps into her spiritual energy, she learns a different truth. Softness is a power most people will never understand. She doesn't need to overpower. She influences through resonance, through calm, through clarity. She walks into a room and shifts the energy not by demanding attention but by being completely aligned with her presence. Softness allows her to absorb without losing herself, to listen without being manipulated, to care without being controlled. This power is rooted in her nervous system, in her breath, in her ability to pause before reacting. She learns to sit with discomfort without scrambling to fix it. She holds space for contradictions, nuance, and complexity. This kind of strength doesn't spike adrenaline. It doesn't need adrenaline. It flows through trust. Trust in herself, her timing, her intuition. She becomes magnetic, not because she tries to be, but because softness is rare. Her gentle boundaries, her calm voice, her refusal to engage in emotional chaos, these become her quiet armor, and eventually the world starts adjusting around her, not the other way around. 4. The pulse behind stillness. Something profound happens when a Sigma female begins to trust stillness. What once felt like inactivity now feels alive. She begins to sense a pulse behind the quiet, like a secret rhythm, guiding her deeper into herself. Before awakening, she might have felt shame for resting, guilt for doing nothing. But once her spiritual energy is unlocked, she learns that stillness is not passive. It's participatory. It's a conversation with her higher self. She starts using pauses deliberately before making decisions, before responding to someone, before rushing into another obligation. That pause becomes her superpower. She begins to feel that the universe breathes with her, that nature moves in cycles, not deadlines, that presence is more productive than frenzy. In that stillness, she downloads clarity. Her creativity flows, her nervous system relaxes, and her intuition gets louder. She no longer panics in moments of uncertainty. She waits. She listens, because now she knows. Stillness is never empty. It is the space where wisdom speaks. 5. Eyes that see through masks. Spiritual awakening gives her a new kind of vision. She starts seeing through what used to confuse her. Words that once charmed her now ring hollow. Faces she used to trust now feel performative. It's not that she becomes cynical, it's that she becomes awake. She notices who drains her even if they smile. She recognizes manipulation wrapped in flattery. She senses the dissonance between someone's energy and their words. This new sight isn't about judgment, it's about self-preservation. She doesn't need to confront or expose anyone. She simply stops giving herself away. Where she once doubted her gut, she now honors it. Where she used to override her discomfort, she now investigates it. People might find her too discerning or closed off, but what they don't understand is that she's protecting her field. Her energy is sacred now, and she no longer auditions for belonging. This is the quiet confidence of the Sigma soul. She sees clearly, but she doesn't need to say much. Her discernment becomes her compass. 6. The reeing of the soul. As she awakens, something wild stirs in her. Not chaotic, not reckless, but deeply untamed. She begins to rewild her soul. This doesn't mean abandoning structure. It means abandoning the structures that never fit her. She stops micromanaging her every move, stops apologizing for her feelings, stops making herself small to fit in rooms that were never built for someone like her. She returns to instinct, to intuition, to flow. She dances when she needs to, screams into the wind when no one is watching, cries without hiding, laughs without asking permission. She starts remembering who she was before. The world told her who to be before shame, before performance, before survival strategies became personality traits. She reconnects to nature, to moon cycles, 2 seasons. She might walk barefoot more often. She might crave forests, oceans, rain, not because it's aesthetic, but because the earth mirrors her own cycles of becoming. She begins to live with reverence, not restraint. And in doing so, she feels more alive than ever. 7. The drop before the rise. There's something the world doesn't prepare her for. The spiritual free fall, the moment when everything known begins to dissolve. For the Sigma, female, unlocking spiritual energy often begins with a drop, not a rise, a falling away of what once felt solid. Relationships shift, old identities crumble. The masks she wore so well stop fitting. This isn't a breakdown, it's an initiation. She might feel lost, disoriented, even raw, but something inside her knows this is sacred. The drop is not failure, it's a shedding. In this space, she meets the deepest parts of herself, the tender wounds, the stories she inherited, the parts of her she silenced to stay acceptable. And, strangely, instead of running, she stays. She holds space for the fall. No, one claps for this part. No one sees it. But it's here that she becomes. She learns to grieve who she used to be without rushing to replace her. She lets discomfort be a doorway, not a dead end. And in doing so, she begins the most important transformation of all, the one that happens in the dark. Later, she will rise. She will glow differently. But the drop, the raw, unfiltered descent, is what gave her roots. This is the paradox of awakening. You rise by falling, you grow by breaking, you become by unbecoming. 8. Quiet intensity. There's a power in her now, but it doesn't announce itself. It radiates silently. People feel it before they understand it. They sense a shift, a gravity, a presence. This is what spiritual energy does to the Sigma, female. It sharpens her stillness to intensity. She no longer rushes to fill, silences. Her eyes speak. Her energy communicates. She becomes a mirror. People see themselves in her. Some are drawn closer, some pull away. Either way, she stays centered. This quiet intensity is not about dominance. It's about integrity. She knows who she is now. She doesn't need to perform certainty. She embodies it. She doesn't chase connections. They find her. And the ones who stay, they're the ones who can sit in stillness, who aren't afraid of depth, who don't need noise to feel alive. She's no longer afraid to be alone. In fact, solitude becomes her sanctuary. She stops explaining her silence. It's not emptiness, it's presence. Her quietness holds weight now. It carries truth. And without saying a word, she begins to shift every room she enters. 9. Intuition as navigation. When a Sigma female unlocks her spiritual energy, logic takes a back seat. Not because it isn't valuable, but because it's no longer the driver. She begins navigating life from a deeper place, a quieter place. Intuition becomes her compass. It starts with small things, declining invitations without needing a reason, changing routines because something just doesn't feel aligned. Over time, these small choices build a life rooted in resonance, not obligation. She no longer needs to explain her decisions. Her no is enough. Her yes is sacred, and her trust in her own inner signals becomes unshakable. There's a subtle shift in her voice. It becomes more grounded, less reactive, more attuned to truth. She can feel when something is off, even if the words sound right. This level of discernment doesn't come from books or courses. It comes from listening to her body, her breath, her energy. She stops outsourcing her knowing, stops polling others for advice she already knows the answer to. This doesn't make her infallible, it makes her sovereign. She understands that clarity is an inside job, And in honoring her intuition, she begins creating a life that truly fits her soul first. 10. Boundaries as love notes gone are the days when she believed boundaries were mean. After awakening, she sees them for what they really are. Love notes to herself. A spiritual sigma. Female doesn't create walls. She creates clarity. Her boundaries don't come from fear. They come from deep respect for her time, her energy, her peace. She no longer over-explains her limits. She states them with grace and lets the chips fall. Her energy no longer bends to make others comfortable. She understands that her boundary isn't rejection. It's an invitation to meet her with more respect. This shift is radical, especially if she was raised to be nice, to overgive, to never disappoint. Now she disappoints with love. She says no with softness. She protects her sacred rhythm like a garden, not with barbed wire, but with intentional care. People who can't honor that boundary fall away, and she lets them with no drama, with no resentment, just release. She doesn't use boundaries to punish. She uses them to protect the parts of her that finally feel safe to come out. This is spiritual maturity. This is softness with backbone. This is the quiet revolution of the self-honoring woman. 11. Dissolving the old self. When spiritual energy flows freely in a Sigma female, she no longer clings to the versions of herself that helped her survive. She begins to see them for what they were: costumes, armor, masks that once served a purpose but no longer fit. She doesn't destroy the old self. She thanks her, honors her, then lets her go. This is not dramatic. It's slow, a soft erosion. She stops laughing at jokes that don't land in her spirit, stops accepting crumbs and calling it connection, stops shrinking in rooms that misunderstand silence. She no longer fears being misunderstood. She no longer edits her presence to be palatable. She chooses wholeness over performance. In letting go of who she thought she had to be, she discovers what she's always been. This shedding is quiet, but it's seismic. It ripples into every part of her life. Relationships recalibrate. Desires shift. Her calendar, her closet, her choices, they all start to reflect her, now, not her. Then this is where true self-respect blooms. Not the kind that needs to prove, but the kind that simply is. She doesn't become someone new. She becomes someone true. 12. The slow living revolution. The last discovery is perhaps the most radical. She no longer races in a world that glorifies the hustle, the noise, the rush. She opts out completely. She begins to live slow, not because she's lazy, not because she's lost ambition, but because speed is no longer sacred. Presence is. She realizes that rest is not a reward, it's a right. That joy doesn't live in a future achievement, but in the now, in the breath, in the cup of tea, in the sunset, in the full yes and the soft no. She creates space between moments. She stops multitasking herself into numbness. She walks instead of runs. She breathes before she speaks. She listens before she reacts. Her nervous system heals. Her body softens. Her mind clears. This slowness becomes a revolution against urgency, against scarcity, against self-abandonment. She is no longer driven by fear of missing out because she trusts that what is meant for her will never rush her. She makes peace with time. She moves like water, and in that still flow, she becomes a quiet force. Wisdom seekers, this is where we pause, not because the journey ends, but because it begins again inside you. You now hold 12 keys to your inner world, 12 ways to live, softer, deeper, freer. Let them integrate. Let them breathe. And if you want to carry this softness further, choose yourself. Softly is waiting for you, not with demands, with presence, not to teach you, to meet you. Link is in the description and the first pinned comment. Remember, your power is not in how loud you are, it's in how true you are. Keep honoring your rhythm. Keep guarding your peace. And above all, keep choosing yourself softly. This is Wisdom Ways. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until we meet again.